As many of you know, and you liked and you shared, and I hope you do the same thing here, I went through and kind of did my own deep dive of the Georgia election law. As many of you saw, there were a lot of things that were just flat out lies about the law itself. You had Joe Biden claiming that it was Jim Crow. You had Senator Warnock out of Georgia himself was knocked by the Washington Post for spreading lies about the Georgia law. I expect that the similar thing is going to happen here with the Florida election law, but I wanted to take a few minutes to actually dig into the law itself. As I was doing the research, writing all of my notes, I realized that CNN made my job easier. So CNN actually published an article where they're fact-checking things about the Florida election law itself. What better source to use for my largely non-conservative audience than a liberal website? So let's go with what they say. And what I'm going to do, and to explain how this works, and as many of you know in communication or writing in general, you put your most important information first, which means that the article that I'm going to share, and I'm just going to go through maybe the first 5 to kind of read them off and then double back, circle back to talk about each specific one. So let's dig in here. All righty, you see that? Fact check. Here's what Florida's new elections law actually does. And you can go and research this yourself. As I always say, don't just listen to me. Don't listen to your favorite commentator, of which I am, I'm pretty sure. Do the research yourself. So let's start with number 1. The first thing that CNN says is the most egregious part of the law. Limits on drop boxes. Double the work requirement to apply for mail-in ballots. New voter ID requirements. A limit on ballot collection, and a restriction on unsolicited mail-in ballots. There are a few more under there, but as I said, this is how it works. You put your most important information first, so I figure that we can at least just start with that one. Limits on drop boxes. Let me explain that. Unlike Georgia, Florida was similar to Maryland in that Maryland prior to last year had ballot drop boxes available for voters. Georgia, contrary to what most people didn't even know, Georgia was not a state that had ballot drop boxes. Florida was a little different. Florida already had ballot drop boxes. Florida, the availability, or at least the access to those drop boxes, was available for 24 hours a day. What the Florida legislature did, they said, no longer will we have those ballot drop boxes available for 24 hours. We will limit the availability or access to those boxes to where they correspond to early voting hours, which means that for 12 hours out of a day, ballot drop boxes will be made available to the public. There are exceptions for, I think, locations for official locations, maybe like the Board of Elections. Those will be open longer, and you will have much better access to those as opposed to some of the other ones. Now, let's kind of put this into just a little bit of context. Most people will continue to mail in their ballots. They just do. Most people don't use the ballot drop boxes. Most people will either vote in person or mail in their voting. Remember, just last year, there was a lot of conversation around Postmaster General DeJoy being this Trump acolyte who was just doing Trump's bidding. How many people do you actually think use those ballot drop boxes? That doesn't mean no one did, but the majority of people mailed in their ballot drop boxes, and they will continue to mail in their ballots when voting. People will argue, yes, this does limit the availability of ballot drop boxes, But is it voter suppression?